Zinnias don't really have a smell, but isn't it nice to look at someone smelling flowers? August was a beautiful month. Lots of sunshine. Hot at the beginning here, and then it snapped cold pretty fast after the half of the month. In fact, we even had a near frost down in the 40s. The next 10-day outlook here is in 2 days in the 70s, mostly in the 60s, and some in the 50s. Fall is here. So the theme that you'll hear me talk about time and time again, from the middle of July through the middle of August at least, tomatoes, tomatoes, tomatoes. The garden is in high production, and not just tomatoes, but also the zucchini and the end of the summer squash and anything that's like that, the cucumbers, they're all just going strong. So you go out there and you can't help but come back in with a basket full of something to share for breakfast or lunch. And one of the things that I enjoyed doing this month was canning tomatoes. Throughout the month, I canned my tomatoes into marinara. I did a bunch of whole tomato canning, especially with the smaller red tomatoes. I made tomato soup to go with, grilled cheese sandwiches, because you can never go wrong with that. And these keep so well for a year down in the cellar. We use them all the time, or they also make really unique personal gifts if we have a friend come over or we want to give something away. While you're here and I have your attention, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. That goes a long way in helping this channel stand out to the algorithm. Thank you very much. The absolute worst pest in my book are squash bugs. I can deal with leaf cutter bugs, I can deal with cabbage moths, but I just hate squash bugs. And once they start, they just don't stop. Look, there are their little eggs underneath. I've had some success in the past if you get out really early, taking some tape and just getting the eggs off the leaves and squashing them before they start, but you can't kill them otherwise. I've tried different pesticides, they haven't worked. I just want to go in there with a flamethrower sometimes, but that just defeats the purpose. Look at how great this looks now. Wait till you see it at the end of the month. All gray, powdered mildew, those darn squash bugs, really making it look ugly. Fortunately, they don't affect everything in the garden. Peppers are incredibly abundant here too. We've had a lot of stuffed peppers, and I like to grind them up, not grind them, but like take them to a blender and almost liquefy them, add them with onions and things, and I make a really good black bean burger. I take the black beans and I squish them real low, and then I mix them with the peppers and the onions and some garlic and breadcrumbs, and that becomes the patty instead of using beef, and it turns out really lovely. Anyways, they're also one of our favorite snacks to just slice up and eat raw. Even the girls like the crunch. This is what happens when you take 10 days off of the garden. Things take over. There are weeds creeping Charlie. Plants fall flat. Tomatoes over-ripen. It gets wild fast. Even this time of year. You may be surprised to know that after my many years of gardening, this is actually the first year I have ever canned whole tomatoes. That's right, I'm trying different canning things, because you're never too old to learn something new, and we have so many wide-mouth quart jars, and we had such an abundance of tomatoes, I thought, my gosh, why not? This is one of the easiest things to can, I've heard, and it truly was. Very satisfying, squishing them in there with a little bit of lemon and of course the boiling water, and those should keep. And we put those in. I make a really good minestrone soup as we head into the fall soup season, and how satisfying it'll be to go down, get out a can of that summer goodness and add it to a soup. Here we are by the raspberries. They should be more abundant already at this time in the video, but they're not. We haven't had enough rain. The leaf cutter bugs are getting to them too, but that doesn't really affect the yield Here you see a mix of some that are almost over-ripened and many that are under-ripened. It's just strange. Now you can tell that the powdery mildew is setting on, so I'm going in and I'm setting any pumpkins I have on these cute little holders just to get them off the ground, increase that airflow around it so the fruit itself stays hearty, with hopes of it, fully ripening by the time I want to harvest it. Take a look there at the fence. You see those blackberries. They are way overgrown and they're going into everything else. The new Vego beds that I'm going to put in as I rub out these old wooden ones, instead of being 15 feet long, they're going to be 13 and a half. So there will be more space between the fence and the end of the beds so I can A, walk, and B, trellis the blackberries, get a hold of them much better than I have before. Take a look here on the bench. We've got some zucchini, we got some raspberries. That's what it was like every couple of days. You'd go out there, get some zucchini, make some delicious bread, have some raspberries with your breakfast. They're my wife's favorite fruit. And now we get to the end of the month and we're pulling up all the zucchini plants and the tomatoes and chopping them up into compost. This season, every month I have sported some sort of tool of the month, and it's been a lot of fun thinking about what it should be. This month the tool is a hat. I was gonna say it was any kind of PPE, personal protective equipment. I'm always wearing long sleeves in the garden, but a hat really does it. Oftentimes I'll be out in sunglasses too, or I go out, especially in the morning when it's still shaded or overcast. I shut down when it's too hot or when it's too blinding. So do yourselves a favor. My grandparents had skin cancer issues. They were out in the garden all the time, out in the yard. And of course my parents were the generation that went out with baby oil, to try to purposefully suntan and get sunspots, and I am just the opposite direction. So cover up as much as you can, find yourself a hat that you love and go with it. I like these big wide brim Amish ones, and that's what I think you should do in the garden. Wear hats. In this final voiceover, we have a shot of the garden from my neighbor's yard. I was over there for whatever reason, and I thought, take a look at it from this perspective. You can see things starting to dry out. When the tomatoes are brown and yellow on the bottom, I know they're done. I've gotten 90 to 95% of what they're going to produce. Time to rip them out and say goodbye and thank you. I'm in the middle of ripping out my tomatoes, but I thought I'd take a break for just a moment behind the zinnias to tell you, earlier this year when I planted these, it was an experiment. I planted them very close together, closer than what's recommended, and I wanted to see how that affected yield and disease and such. And in a very non-scientific way, this is my take on it. The yield did not suffer. I have canned a ton. I did, 7-8 quarts of whole tomatoes, the same for marinara, a bunch of tomato soups, not to mention just a ton of red tomatoes that we would eat or give to people. Really, it's been so abundant. And now you can see that the leaves, if maybe you can see in frame, they're yellow and brown on the bottom coming up. We're having a cooler, earlier fall this year, and so we already had a near frost. Tomatoes just aren't having it. So I know 90% of the tomatoes that were going to come on these have already come, and that's fine. So I'm getting rid of them, save myself some headache later in September. Everything that's green here, from green tomatoes to the actual tomatillos, not to mention peppers and garlic and onions. I'm gonna make a really great salsa verde. So I've had excellent yields despite planting them very close together. I haven't noticed mildew issues. And sure, if I had pruned them from the bottom and been more selective, perhaps I could have gotten even greater yields in the middle to the top here. But that didn't matter to me. Really, I got a ton, way more than I expected. Easily the best year I've ever had for tomatoes. I'm very happy. On the last day of the month, I really like to do a garden tour just to show you how things look. So we'll start in this corner. Having lettuce in the shade of this great big maple was terrific. I was actually able to cut and come again for most of the summer. It only just bolted recently. The same can be said for this kale. Even though half of it was probably eaten by rabbits right from the start, it came back, and I kept coming and cutting again, time after time, for smoothies. This strawberry bed has required a lot of weeding, and the right hand side hasn't really come in well, but the left hand side is nice and thick, and really where it established nicely. Just look at how good and dense areas like this are. I'm pleased by that. This last minute idea I had to throw zinnia seeds in this area was a splendid idea. Just look at the pollinators. There's like 3 or 4 of them in this frame alone, and the cut flowers have been wonderful to bring inside. Next month we'll cut down all the rhubarb and we'll make another batch of rhubarb sauce or something, and it'll be good to go. I'm going to split it for next year. Ooh, more rhubarb. Since the currants and gooseberries are done, they have been for over a month now. I haven't really featured them, but that's what they look at the end of summer after they're picked. They're a little wilty. We haven't had a lot of rain, but we'll be trimming them next month. The pumpkins have powdery mildew and squash bugs. I hate squash bugs. I'm not optimistic for how long this is going to last. I think it's going to be done sooner than later. I would just like to see some of these get orange and remain firm before I pluck them, but don't know if I'll get so lucky. Putting Brussels sprouts in and among the zucchini was an interesting idea. Really, none of them are going to do anything except this one right here. You can see it does have a few, but we're well over the period of time where this should be ready to pick. So I'm going to let it go for a little while longer, but I think it's going to be immature. As alluded to many times, the tomatoes are completely picked, as are the zucchini. This one random pumpkin that I put in here after pulling out the bean trellis has done nothing. I've harvested a lot of peppers all summer long. Occasionally I'll leave a few on and the flies get to that one and leave the rest alone. I'll be picking these this week as I make my salsa verde. Cucumbers were pointless. They really did not bear fruit. And when they did, they were odd shapes like this, small and squat. I think next year I will plant one cucumber plant and treat it really nicely. This is the time of year when I should be getting a lot of these raspberries for the end of the season, but we've had no rain, and so they've been maturing really weird, and the plants themselves look sickly and dry. And this is what the garden looks like overall. Just a quick last panorama on August 31st. The gardening season for me is now truly and thoroughly finished. As we move into September, I will go into workhorse mode, ripping it all out, and we're going to start putting in our new Vago raised beds, changing out the layout. I've got all sorts of plans. And then of course the arch, the leaning arch that you see here, it's 8 years old, that is going to go into the garden actually, the way I've designed it. So be sure to stay tuned in the month to come so you can see that. I'm excited to properly make use of it again. I've really enjoyed things. The thing I'm most proud of this month is probably my tomatoes. I canned so much, as I talked about earlier, I'm sure in this video on one of my rants, and I've made a lot of good use out of it. Salsa verde is coming up now with all the green tomatoes and tomatillos that I picked. So I will be planting dense tomatoes again next year and getting a lot of use out of it. Have you had a good summer? Was it too wet, too hot, too dry, too whatever by you? Let us know in the comments below. And as always, thank you so much for watching, friends. Take care. See you in the next one. Bye.